Today I will show you how to carve a central incisor from soap. So here is the dimensions of the tooth here. From the buccal root, we have mesio-distal countercrests here, and the crown width, it means the dimension between the countercrests is 8.6 millimeters. And we will work 3 times bigger carving. So when we multiply it with 3, it's 25.8 millimeters. It's mesio-distal width. And this is the crown length. Crown length is in average 11 millimeters, and 3 times bigger means 33 millimeters. And for the root length, it's 13 millimeters, and 3 times bigger means 39 millimeters. So in sum, if you take the sum total measurement, will be 72 millimeters. The total length of root and crown. And from the approximate view, the dimensions between the contour crest, buccal and lingual contour crests, is 7.1 millimeters. It is, as you can see here, 1.5 millimeters narrower, more narrow in the buccolingual direction for this tooth, and 3 times bigger means 21.3 millimeters. So we have a soap block here, and there is a stamp usually on the soap block. It is better to remove that stamp. Remove that stamp in the beginning, because it can make you mistake about the dimensions. I will put the microphone here, but you cannot understand in this case, right? And I'm removing this stamp in the beginning, like this. And please be careful about the technique. This is the bigger spatula, and we have a smaller one here. For this kind of 3 times work, we can easily work with this bigger one. And for some details, we are using this smaller one. And when you hold the spatula, there are 2 different holding positions. One is with your 4 fingers like this. Okay? With your 4 fingers, and you will always use your thumb as the support, okay? Like this. Please be careful. Always this finger is used for support. Not like this. You should always use your fingers to support your block, okay? Do you understand? Always with support. And the other position is like a pencil. And please remember that all the time, even in the patient mouth, in your future life, you have to use the rest of your fingers as support. Inside the patient mouth, we are using some rotary hand pieces like angle driver or iritor, a turbine. Even when using them, we are always using our fingers for support, okay? Never like this, always with support. So, for quick carving with bigger amounts, holding like this with 4 fingers with your palm and supporting with this finger is more quick to make quick carving. So this stamp is gone now, it's flat, and after this I will measure the dimensions that I need. It could be wise to make the measurements of 1-2 millimeters more larger for security. So this one, measure distance was 25.8. I will make it 26, 27 like this, and another point 27 again, and one more time, sorry, 27 is here, and drawing the points like this. So this will be the buckle face, and this dimension is the medial distal dimension. Okay, so I am carving here, but shallow, not very deep, the letter B here. It will be buckle. And our total length was 72 millimeters, so I'm marking 73 here. And 33 of this 73 will be the crown. So here is the crown length. I am again marking. Please silence. So this will be the crown length, this will be the root, and here is the total length, and here is medial distal crown width. And also we have a buccolingual dimension, and it was 21.3. So I will again mark 22 here. Yes, here is 22. So I will make my blocks smaller as needed, like this. Be careful and patient. Be careful and patient because your block can crack if you hurry. Sinon spatula var mı? So here is my block. It's still longer than I need. It was the total length, 72 millimeters. I am also removing that part. And here is my block. See? So this was the crown length and this is the root length, as you remember. And first, at the buccal side, I am carving the cervical line first. Cervical line is a curve, not this line is our cervical line. Cervical line is a curve, friends, and this line, crown length line, is the peak point of this curve, okay? So it's a very, very common mistake to make your cervical line a flat line like this. It's a common mistake. Please don't do that, okay? Cervical line has to be a curve like this. We are making our curves first, and the peak point of the curve is in contact with this line. And we have to choose one side is as mesial and the other side is distal. In this case, I will make this side distal, the letter D here, and this side mesial, letter M here. So, after making the curve and the apex of the peak of this curve should be in the middle of mesodistal dimension, okay? The peak of the curve should be in the middle of this dimension. So I'm making the curve here first. This should be the mesial side, and this is the distal side. And still working on the curve, and we have a buccal contour crest in this area, in the cervical thread. We can make imaginable lines, virtual lines here, and divide the crown part in three sections. This is the cervical thread section, the part which is close to the cervical line, and the contour crest should be in the cervical thread here. So I'm not touching this point, okay? Deep in making the cervical line deeper here, but not touching this point. Because when you look from the approximate view, the contour crest should be here. Then starting to carve the buccal face like this. You see, making a curve here. It will shape, it will form the incisal edge, and incisal edge should be located in the middle of buccolingual dimension. So to the middle point, midpoint, I will make a curve to locate the incisor edge. You see? So buccal surface is starting to shape forward now. The contour crest, the most outer point of this contour, the peak of this contour is here. After this point, the cervical line deepens and the incisor edge turns to the middle of the approximal surface. Okay? And also this was the mesial side, and we have a curve here again. And the contour crest should be located very, very close to the incisor edge, mesial incisor corner. But in the distal surface, the contour crest should be located a little bit more to the middle point, and it will be located in the junction of incisor third and middle third. Even it can go up to the middle of the distal surface. So where I am making the distal side, this side, more rounded. You see here? Can you see that? I'm making this side more rounded to locate the contour crest to here. 1/3 of the incisor cervical dimension. This is the rounded distal corner, but for mesial corner, I'm not making it round. It's more like sharp corner, and the contour crest should be located just close to the incisor edge. Here you can see. Okay, this side is rounded, mesial side is more sharp, but slightly rounded, not a sharp corner. Then I'm starting to narrow the tooth from incisor edge to the cervical line. And also, please remember that from the buccal surface, these are mesiobuccal and distobuccal linings. After the linings, the tooth becomes narrower. When you go inside to the lingual palatinal surface, you have to narrow down from both sides the tooth. Okay? So you see it's getting narrow. And in the lingual side, we also have a cervical line, just like the buccal one, but because of the lingual surface is narrower than the buccal surface, our cervical line curve is also narrow, more narrow than the buccal surface cervical line. Okay? This curve is narrower than the buccal surface cervical line. And you see there is a curve here. There is a curve in the lingual side. It goes through the approximal surface. Also, there is a curve in the buccal side, and it goes again to the approximal surface. And when they join here, they are making a V shape channel here. You see, you understand? This is very important. You cannot make the cervical line flat like this here in the approximal mesial distal side. Especially in the mesial side, this V is quite deep. I told you in the theoretical class. You remember, right? Everybody remember this? This is very deep, especially in the mesial surface. But in distal surface, it's a little bit less. The depth of the V shape, V curvature is not as deep as the mesial one. Okay? So, continue with the lingual side. And when you make the cervical line deeper and narrow down the lingual side, there should be an egg-shaped elevation from the surface. A big egg-shaped elevation. And also, please remember the lesson, the course we had in the morning. The buccal contour was all convex, but the lingual contour should be convex in the cingulum area, then become concave in the fossa area, and in the end, convex again at the incisor edge. So, I am making now the concavity of the fossa in the lingual side, lingual surface. You see, the shape of tooth is more visible now. This is the concavity of the fossa. And slowly by slowly, we are carving the lingual side, we are carving the buccal side, buccal surface, and we are slowly by slowly shaping the incisal edge. And in the end, the incisal edge should be in the middle of buccolingual dimension. Please always remember that. Slowly or slowly, if you are carving lingually, stop and re-evaluate the position, the location of incisal edge. Okay? If you need more carving from buccal side, stop and start to carve again from the buccal. to correctly locate the incisor edge. So, I need more carving from the buccal side surface. So, under control and recontrolling my shape again and again all the time, I am locating the anatomical landmarks of the tooth in the correct places. So, as you can see here, cingulum is starting to form here. We are now shaping the cingulum in the lingual side, lingual surface. Please remember the cervical turn of the buccal surface was more rounded, more convex and curvy, and middle and incisor portions were more flat when compared to the cervical turret, which we told it in the theoretical class. So, you see, it's easily shaped. As you can see here, it's very, very easy. So I'm making it very quick. You have much more time. So you will carve it much better than me. I believe this. Give me this stone model, this central incisor. Are they look alike? What do you think? But this is 5 times bigger, and this is tooth number 21, and this is tooth number 11. These are the pairs. Okay? So, the crown part is almost done. We will shape the cingulum better, and we will shape the fossa, but later. Fossa will be the last thing, usually, we are making. But the contours, the crown contours, the locations of the anatomical landmarks are all made in this crown now. So, we can start to shape the root and with big pieces, but of course under control. We can remove the excess soap around the root. Root is a little bit longer than the crown in this tooth. And the apical third, the most apical part of the root, will be a little bit leaned, turned to the distal side. So the end part of the root will turn like this, to the distal part. So please remember it when removing the soap. And it is it has a rounded triangle-like cross-section, this root. So the triangle, the base of the triangle is on the buccal side, and the apex of the triangle will be on the lingual side, but it doesn't mean you will make a perfect triangle, because all the corners of the triangle and the angles will be rounded. And important again, very common mistake, the root in the cervical part and the middle part, the root, the walls of the root is almost will be parallel to each other. It's getting narrowed very slightly. But in the apical turret, it quickly narrows down and makes the apex, okay? So the cervical line is the transition area between the root and the crown, and it is very important to prepare the cervical line transition area because this is one of the most difficult things for you, as I see in the works or the homeworks of my previous students, previous classes. One of the most difficult things is to make the cervical line transition between the crown and the root. Please evaluate the stone models, dental stone central incisors of yours here. As you can see here, cervical line is not a deep line. Yeah, you can see it easily, but the root part is narrower than the crown part, and cervical line is not a deep line in the surface. It's just a line. It's not a hole. Okay? So I'm making the transition between crown and the root. So we have the crown and the root shapes now. All the anatomic landmarks are located. So it is time for working slowly. Okay? We have to be careful, more careful in this stage of carving. If you do something wrong, probably it will be impossible to fix it. You see the apex of the root is turning to the distal surface, okay? Leaning to the distal. And please remember, when you look at the incisor edge, from the incisor edge of the crown, you will see nothing about the root. Okay? Root should be totally superimposed. Silence, please. So the root apex and incisor edge should be in the same line. And root apex should be rounded, not flat, not very pointy. Okay? It's blunt and rounded. Okay. These are the main form, basic form of central incisor. So we need some more fine arrangements, fine working on this crown. The most difficult part is the cervical line transition area. And in the end, we have to be sure about we have polished it very, very nice. It will be very nicely polished in the end. It is very important for us because maybe you cannot make the carving very good in the first time. Maybe it is impossible for the first time, but you can polish it very good even if you don't know anything about the anatomy or morphology. Okay, polishing is very easy. Anyone can make the polishing very good, and so we think that if you don't polish your work good, it means you are lazy. Okay? Anyone who is not lazy can polish it very well. You don't need a special skill for polishing. Yes, this is the cervical line, basically. And we are making the fossa now. For fossa, carving fossa, we are using the end part, not the pointed part, the end part of the spatula. And please remember there are two ridges here. One is here in the mesial side, and one is in the distal side. There should be two ridges bordering the fossa, and cingulum is another border of the fossa. And the ridge, the mesial ridge, should be longer than the distal ridge, and the apex of the contour crest of the cingulum should be located a little bit distally than the midline of this tooth. Okay? The contour crest of cingulum is located distally, so the mesial marginal ridge of the fossa should be longer than the distal one. I'm just using the back part, end part of the spatula and slowly forming the fossa by carving. And this is the incisal edge. The incisal edge is also bordering, limiting the fossa. Please remember. So this depression here you can see is enough for fossa. And the final shape of our incisal edge here. And when we look from the incisal view, this distal incisal corner should be located a little bit palatinally, lingually than the mesio-incisal corner. So it means the crown is a little bit turned to distally like this. Okay? I'm trying to find the right correct angle. It's a little bit turned like this. This distal corner is a little bit lingually placed than the mesial one. I'm making the correction now. And the last thing, we have shallow developmental grooves here, starting from the cervical part and a little bit deeper in the incisal edge area. There are two developmental grooves in the surface. Here one, you can see, here is the one, first one, and this is the second one. You see better now here. A little bit deeper and wider in the incisal portion, but becomes shallow, more shallow, narrower, and it disappears in the cervical part. And the other developmental groove here, mesial developmental groove, already told you, these are the signs of the lobes, different developmental centers. This is the junction of the embryological term lobes. So, the crown is ready now, and for polishing we will use this ladies' socks. So, everyone has a lady sock. As you can see here, if you don't have in the surface deep grooves in the surface, you can easily polish. But if you have deep grooves because of uncontrolled use of these spatulas, you cannot fix the surface with socks. You have to remove the grooves using the spatula and get rid of these grooves, then polish. Okay? If you want to polish the surface should be clean, free of deep grooves and spatula marks, signs. Okay? And during the polishing, maybe you can erase the cervical line. Cervical line can be flattened a little bit. Then after polishing, you can use your fingernail like this to recreate the cervical line. Like this, okay? Using your fingernail over the sock. I am redrawing the cervical line here now to make it clear and visible again. But very slowly, very low pressure. Okay, the polish of the surface should be better, but it's enough now. And here is our central incisor tooth. Okay, this is the mesial surface, guys. This is rounded distal surface and cervical line and incisor roof. This is the cingulum, and the crest of cingulum is located a little bit distally, and this is fossa and marginal ridge. This is mesial marginal ridge and distal marginal ridge, and here is the root. Root is a little bit triangular shape, as you can see here. It's like a triangle, and the base of triangle is buccally located, and the apex of triangle is here, lingually located. The apex of the root is leaning a little bit distally here. Okay, so this is the central incisor. After the end of the record, anyone can come here to see. And also the developmental grooves, shallow, not deep. And very important, the cervical line. And also this cemento-enamel junction is deeper in the mesial surface and less deep in the distal surface as well. And please remember, everything is about the proportions. We have to, in the buccal width, we have to have a longer crown length than the crown width. Okay? If you lose this proportion, everything will change. That tooth will not be a central incisor anymore. If you narrow down the mesiodistal dimension, it will be a lateral incisor. Or if you elongate the crown length, make it longer, much longer, it will be a mandibular, lower incisor. So everything is about these proportions. And another proportion is the buccolingual dimension here. It has to be less than mesiodistal dimension, but they are very close, okay? If you reduce the buccolingual dimension too much, the tooth will be like pressed from both sides, from buccal and lingual surface. Okay? So, this was the central incisor. I will upload the record to the YouTube channel. Please be a member and have the notifications after uploads, okay? Maybe I can upload some additional documents. I don't know. Please be aware of that, okay? See you in the next tooth carving. Lateral incisor will be the next homework. You have 2 weeks from now. Next week you can show us your homework, but the week after, in the beginning of the course lesson, you will submit your homework, okay? In the beginning of the class. And in that day, you will see the lateral incisor tooth carving demo, okay?